In this episode, we take a look at India's classrooms, where students and teachers scramble to rethink what learning should look like in an AI-driven world. We also talk about multiple women students accusing the manager of an ashram-run institute of sexual harassment. But we begin today with Uttar Pradesh, where the state government has moved to restrict the overt display of caste identification in official and public spaces. Hi, I'm Ichha Sharma, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Acting on the heels of a striking judgment by the Allahabad High Court, the state has issued a sweeping 10-point directive banning caste-based political rallies, removing caste identifiers from vehicles and public spaces, and even erasing caste details from most place records. Now, while the move is being framed as an effort to curb caste discrimination and promote national unity, it actually stems from an unexpected case, not about caste, but about alleged liquor smuggling.
See, it all started with the order by Allahabad High Court.
This is the Indian Express's Maulsree Seth, who reported on the story for the newspaper.
There was a petition which was filed, and they had observed that in some of the police notings, the caste was mentioned. So it all started from there. So the High Court, in its direction, asked UP government to ensure that in the police notings, the caste mention is not there. And there were other observations in the court order also. So citing this High Court order, which dated September 16th, Chief Secretary, which is officiating Chief Secretary Deepak Kumar, he issued a direction to all the DMs, secretaries, as well as the police heads in the states, as well as the DGP, with a detailed 10-pointer order of how things should move on based on the High Court order. So basically, the main crux of the order was restricting allegedly the misuse of caste name, either glorifying it or it cited that it kind of creates a conflict. So just to avoid that, these guidelines are being issued. So it's how it all started.
Now, Maulsree says that the circular talks about three key mandates. First, police records must no longer mention caste in line with the court's observations. Second, public displays of caste markers on banners, insignia, or vehicles are prohibited. And third, perhaps most politically significant, the government has barred rallies or meetings organized explicitly for a single caste group.
So while in a state like UP, where caste is in the basis of it's in the political structure and everywhere, so setting aside the caste from not just the police notings, but also since they directed that people can't use it on their vehicles, that if it is done, then they'll be challaned. So it's a usual sight in UP, especially across district and especially before elections. So that being done, and then they prohibiting that any caste-based political rallies cannot take place in UP as well, because it kind of affects not just the opposition, but also the allies of BJP, which are basically the regional parties. So they have their vote base based on one particular section of caste and one particular section of the state, part of the state. So they kind of cater to those. So they reach out, and their meetings are largely concentrated on those castes because they kind of claim the vote share of those particular section. So it kind of disturbs them as well, even though they could not be that vocal like the opposition. But it did kind of created a ripple there also, because they were kind of trying to understand how to react. And when we spoke to some of them, they kind of said that how would we go ahead with it, because we have to cater to one particular section. And when we are actually based on raising the voice of one particular marginalized section or the caste, like to talk about just the Nishad party, the very name signifies one particular caste, Nishad, which is like the boatsmen and the fishermen community. And they kind of claim the vote share of those particular communities. So they were saying, how do we go ahead with it?
She says that political parties are now trying to gauge how the order will be enforced, especially ahead of the 2027 assembly elections. And at the same time, questions remain over what exactly would count as misuse or glorification of caste, and who gets to decide that.
See, be it Samajwadi Party or Congress, both kind of claimed that we don't hold caste rallies as such. They might not be caste rallies, but in the past we have seen that whenever there's a reorganization, be it in Congress, they come out and share like these many OBCs, these many SC, ST, another section of the community have been included. So while they said that they don't hold specific caste rallies as such, they targeted the BJP and said that it is BJP which started creating such a divide by holding caste-based public meetings and creating such kind of a division, which actually led to this division. And if we talk about Samajwadi Party, so they question like how this particular order is actually going to bring about a change at the grassroots level where the caste is there in the mindset of people. So how this order would actually be able to change that mindset? So that Samajwadi Party kind of question. And Congress, which is also trying to understand how this order would work out, they also question on the same lines, like again targeting BJP and then questioning like how it would bring about a change at the grassroots level.
Maulsree says that even though the government's position is that action will be taken where aggressive display is likely to lead to conflict, the threshold is not codified in the circular.
See, what the government order has cited is that if a glorification of a caste is done through banners or such symbols on the vehicles, it would be prohibited. As I said, it's a usual sight in districts across UP that people do carry banners or caste-related symbols on their vehicles. Since the government order clearly mentions that these such vehicles would be challaned, so I think it is to be seen how government kind of implements this order on ground. Because if such challans aggressively start taking place, so people would have to get their number plates or would have to avoid putting up such banners or flags on their vehicles. So as of now, people are just waiting to see how this government order is implemented on ground.
In fact, politically, the order's scope will soon be tested when the Bahujan Samaj Party starts mobilizing for an event next month to mark founder Kashi Ram's death anniversary.
See, the reason being that BSP rally, even though some of the people in the opposition as well as the ruling allies have raised a question, but the fact remains that the BSP has not declared it as a caste-based rally. They are saying that they'll be marking the death anniversary of Kanshi Ram. So even though they are mobilizing the cadre from all across the state and other places as well, but as of now, the BSP's rally has not been declared as a caste-based rally by them. So it is unlikely that it might attract some action as of now. But since BSP is yet to react on this particular order, so it is to be seen how they'll move ahead with it. But as of now, their declaration is just to mark the death anniversary of Kashi Ram, their founder.
Maulsree says many agree that the order will reshape familiar campaign strategies. Several parties say that they will have to rework district-level plans to address community concerns without holding caste-exclusive events or using banned symbols. They are also exploring legal and administrative ways to maintain their outreach programs.
So, as I said, it's going to be very difficult for the political parties in UP with the 27 election coming in because caste mobilization is forms, even though some of them might not be holding as such the caste-based rallies, but caste-based mobilization forms the crux of their campaign. Because we have seen in the past the meetings being called by all the political parties for a particular section, be it Brahmins, Thakurs, SC/ST. The teams are formed for a reach out. So they would have to see that they do that while avoiding putting up aggressive symbols or banners related to particular caste or holding specific caste meetings. So it would affect the planning that they do for the election. So I think they have time, and some of them said that they'll have to work their way out how they'll go ahead with the reach out among the particular sections, because they were saying that when they have to address the issues of one particular caste, so they would have to address them. But now with this order, they cannot hold a specific caste-based meeting. So they are saying that they'll have to see how they work with the order as they move ahead with the preparations for the election.
And next, we talk about a quiet transformation underway on Indian campuses. From Delhi University to IITs and private universities, students are increasingly turning to AI tools for everything, from clarifying concepts to drafting assignments. But teachers, meanwhile, are scrambling to keep pace, questioning how much of this new technology belongs in the classroom. Now, this debate goes beyond plagiarism or shortcuts. It's about what learning itself should look like in an AI-driven world. While some institutions have set up committees, updated plagiarism policies, or redesigned exams to make them AI-proof, others are experimenting with ways to integrate the technology. To understand how generative AI is reshaping higher education in India and what it means for the future, we speak to the Indian Express's Vidheesha Kuntamalla. Vidheesha, we know that AI has been called many things, from a PhD in the pocket to a threat to genuine learning. So, could you tell us how generative AI has actually changed the daily course of Indian classrooms?
So, the conversation here in India is now starting to begin in both liberal arts institutions and the science institutions as well. So for now, this is in comparison to institutions in the US. We are still just starting off. Very few institutions have come up with things like an AI policy where institutions are trying to streamline the use of AI by students in their coursework, in their assignments. For instance, at IIT Delhi and at universities like Shiv Nadar University, they've come up with certain policies, which are called AI policies, which state that the extent of use of AI by a student in their coursework or in their assignments should be attributed to AI. Essentially, it is for the student to incorporate this healthy practice into their work and into their classes, where they can furnish the fact that they are using AI openly and not treat it as a tool which they might be using to cheat. The definition of cheat is sort of changing now with these policies coming into the picture.
Right, and we understand from the surveys at IIT Delhi and other institutions you mentioned in your story that 4 out of 5 students are regularly using AI. So, can you talk about the most common reasons why they turn to it?
So in April last year, IIT Delhi formed a committee to decide how generative AI should be used in classrooms, labs, and exams without eroding the academic integrity. So over months, it surveyed more than 400 students and more than 80 faculty members. And the results of that survey in IIT Delhi sort of showed that 4 out of 5 students use AI, and often several times a week, and 1 in 10 pays for a premium subscription to bypass the errors of the free version. So the students at IIT Delhi told the surveys that they use AI to simplify concepts, to create mind maps, to summarize material and, simulate scenarios. Basically, most of these tasks are to somehow save time to finish up their own coursework. But they also highlighted its shortcomings, where they mentioned that AI often gives wrong answers, there's weak context handling, it does bad math, and it has flawed code debugging. So that's when it comes to the students at IIT Delhi.
And earlier, as you mentioned, that even faculties were part of this survey. So what did they have to say about this shift?
So nearly 77% of the faculty members had used AI, according to the survey, and they used it to summarize research papers, to make slides which they use in classrooms while teaching, and to draft official communication. The survey also stated that they valued the speed, but faculty members did voice out the fear of grading distortion and the loss of critical thinking amongst students, and the temptation to let a slick answer replace the rough edges of an original work. So after the survey and after taking in inputs from all the faculty and the students, the committee recommended integrating AI and machine learning into the institute's core curriculum, mandating disclosure of AI use, running workshops on responsible use, basically to sort of educate students as to how smartly they can use AI, but not to plagiarize their own work.
And Vidheesha, we know that there are different methods and models that, faculties are experimenting with to counter or even integrate AI. So could you talk a bit about that?
So we've spoken to several teachers who obviously with AI coming in, Of course, they are slowly accepting the fact that it is inevitable. They have to live with it. So they are changing their own traditional ways of teaching in classrooms. For instance, at Delhi's Indraprastha Institute of Information Technology, we spoke to Gautam Shroff, who's the professor of computer science and engineering. He sort of changed the weightage of assignments and classroom tests to ensure AI was not being misused in his classroom. So he said that he shifted from 50% assignments and 50% examinations to 90% of examinations, where students cannot cheat. I mean, students cannot cheat in proctored tests, but they can cheat on assignments, right? Which is why he was like, I have turned to taking more and more examinations than assignments. So that's one. And second, we have also spoken to a lot of students, researchers, and professors abroad. In one case, in the UK, so there was this master's student who spoke to us and explained how she recalled a math professor during her undergraduate years who gave students ChatGPT written proofs riddled with errors. So their task was to find and fix those mistakes as a lesson that large language models can be slick but wrong, you know? So these are the different ways that even professors are sort of changing their ways of approaching teaching in classrooms.
Right. And you also highlight that there are some professors who have banned AI outright. So is that even practical anymore, given how rampant AI use is?
So there are a few professors. Obviously, I am not sure whether it is practical to ban AI because, again, as I mentioned, it is inevitable. Every institution is trying to incorporate it at some or the other capacity. This professor that we spoke about in the story was from DU, and she is a professor in the Department of Education. And she starts her classroom by writing "No AI" in bold on her classroom board. And not only her, there is still a section of professors in Indian institutions who do not accept the usage of AI. And they are coming up with more and more creative ways of setting their assignments to ensure that students cannot turn to AI. For instance, this particular professor, she has a very unique way of setting her own assignments where she teaches gender, the concept of gender in her classroom through a curated set of songs. And then she shares that set of songs with the students and asks them to analyze gender concepts. In another way, she also collects newspaper cuttings for discussion and for creating her coursework creatively. So yeah, there is still a pool of professors who are coming up with new ideas to make sure that AI cannot be used and totally banned in their classrooms, while there is also another set of teachers who are slowly incorporating it to make their teaching experience better.
And lastly, Vidheesha, how would you say India's approach compares with the universities abroad? Like, how are they doing things differently?
So I think when we spoke to people from other countries, we spoke to professors from Princeton, from Oxford, and from universities in Australia and in the UK as well, we could see that they sort of provided students with licenses to ChatGPT Plus earlier, and there is a lot more encouragement coming from the university's administration to sort of use AI as long as they found it helpful. And the university and the administration's only requirement was that students disclose how they use AI. So this acceptance has come very early on in other parts of the world as compared to India was what we found. So yeah, like for instance, in the UK, universities are collaborating to find solution. And there was this one university called the Swansea University, which is one of the 8 institutions that are part of a nationwide pilot project to test an AI platform called Teachermatic for grading and personalized feedback. And its aim is to pool experience into a best practice toolkit. In Australia also, guidelines have been issued by the higher education regulator, which is called TEXA, to make AI use legitimate. But again, disclosure is mandatory. Every assignment must say how AI was used, and universities are also shifting to oral examinations, a Viva format, and more in-class work. They're also turning to assignments and assessments, especially assessments, the way professors assess students' work, they're turning to the kinds that AI cannot do.
And in the end, We shift our focus to Delhi. 17 women students in the capital have accused the manager of their ashram-run institute, Swami Chaitanya Anand Saraswati, of sexual harassment and molestation. The allegations range from obscene messages and abusive language to unwanted physical contact. According to police, many of the students were enrolled under the economically weaker section quota, making them especially vulnerable. The complaints first surfaced in August, when an administrator from the institute approached police. Investigators spoke with 32 women students, where more than half said they had suffered misconduct by Chaitanya Ananda on a regular basis. Some even alleged that certain faculty members pressured them to comply with his demands. Delhi police has since registered a case under sections of sexual harassment and assault, and statements from 16 victims have been formally recorded before a magistrate. Despite raids in Delhi and Uttar Pradesh, Chaitanya Ananda remains on the run, and the police say his last known location was in Agra. Now, besides these allegations, police have also found out that accused was also allegedly using a red Volvo with a fake United Nations diplomatic number plate. The car was discovered parked in the institute's basement, and a second case has now been filed against him for forgery, cheating, and misuse of official markings. Now, what's worth noting is that this isn't the first time Chaitanya Ananda has faced legal trouble. Police sources say he already has multiple cases against him, including a molestation complaint from 2016 and a forgery case dating back to 2009. Meanwhile, the ashram which ran the concerned institute has issued a public statement distancing itself from him. It said it has severed all ties with Chaitanya Ananda, formerly known as Swami Parthasarthi, calling his actions illegal and harmful. The statement also stressed that the institute continues to be overseen by a governing council approved by the All India Council for Technical Education, and that steps are being taken to safeguard students. But for now, the man at the center of these serious allegations remains at large, while authorities intensify efforts to track him down. You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank, Bhargava and me, Ichha Sharma. If you like the show, do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. You can also recommend it to someone you think may like it, with a friend or in your family. This is the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast or write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.